are tired of this war. We are tired. We want the war to be finished. We want to come out together. We don't have no food. We are starving. We got no food. We got no medicine. I would like peace now. We're tired with the war. I mean, there has been a lot of bloodshed. There has been a lot of losses. I mean, you know, economically, the country lost. Politically, we lost.
And now we are forced to hide in the basements and hide from shells. And we are killed. The children are killed. We are just involved in all this.
A drought has hit a country. Crops fail, and the people face starvation. Delivery of food supplies will encourage families to stay in their villages and prevent their migration to huge far. But rival political factions have mined the roads, and travel for supply convoys is hazardous. These people are caught in what is called a complex emergency. An emergency that is often slow to build, hard to resolve, and agonizing for those who are caught in the middle. The need for special training in preparing for and responding to complex emergencies is increasingly important, for complex emergencies are increasingly common all over the world. A complex emergency is a form of human-made emergency in which the cause and the provision of assistance to those affected is fraught with intense and complex political concerns. For example, this devastating drought that is then compounded by a civil conflict. Complex emergencies are characterized by violence, a lack of security and peace, a lack of access to food, water, and other vital support systems. People are trapped. Civilians are victims of the violence. They flee their homes, seeking a safe haven, but often their government is unwilling or unable to provide assistance, perhaps because of the collapse of political authority in all or parts of the country, ethnic or economic differences, or long-standing rivalries between the government in power and its affected citizens. Politics is the defining factor, the overriding factor, in directing relief efforts in complex emergencies. Factions within a country or neighboring nations and the affected country may be at odds. Internal or international responses to complex emergencies are thus often limited or impossible. The situation is aggravated by the increasing frequency and severity of complex emergencies in the world. Each new emergency increases the need for international aid. Donors may feel overwhelmed, leading to the frustration or sense of futility that some describe as donors' fatigue.
Now one bit is there, the other bit is there. The missile went through the roof. Everything, even the desks, all the documents have been destroyed.
To escape civil unrest, many flee to other areas in their own country or to other countries that are awash in their own problems, other countries that, for political or economic reasons, are often unable to help. Those who stay in their home cities and villages often find themselves trapped by the conflicts. The Horn of Africa is perennially in the grip of a complex emergency. Millions of people in the countries of Somalia, Ethiopia, and the Sudan are dying from starvation or disease. Civil conflicts that begin at a local or provincial level expand to become regional problems. Sometimes they spill over across boundaries from one nation to a neighboring country that has similar ethnic rivalries. These situations are aggravated by natural disasters such as drought. Because of drought, people don't find the food they need locally. Because of civil conflict, trucks are turned away. Because of civil conflict, trucks are turned away, roads mined. Food cannot be delivered. This combination creates a threat of famine, which in turn leads to flight. Tens of thousands leave their homes, becoming displaced in their search for food, in their search for safety. Over time, millions of people move across national borders or become internally displaced. Complex emergencies are characterized by displaced people or those who are trapped in their home environment by civil conflict. Displaced people. Their suffering may be the same as refugees, but they are different by definition and in treatment. A refugee is defined as someone who has a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or because of their political opinion, and who is outside of their country of origin. A displaced person is defined as a person who is forced to leave their home because of drought, famine, or other disaster. Usually they leave to search for food. But in a complex emergency, people may also be displaced because of civil strife, fears about their ability to protect themselves, the fear of persecution for political, ethnic, or religious reasons, or the lack of access to food, shelter, or safety. Internally displaced people are defined as those compelled to leave their home, but yet they remain in their country. Internally displaced people are also defined as those who have been forcibly resettled by their government, usually because of ethnic or racial rivalries. In some instances, the same pressures that may force a displaced person to leave their home may force them to leave their country, to find food, to seek safety, to find freedom from religious or political persecution. They all have been forced to leave their homes. And unlike refugees who have international status and may receive aid because they have crossed a border seeking protection, displaced persons are often not given special status by other countries or in their own country. Their own government may not be able to reach them because of civil conflict, or the government may, for political reasons, choose to simply ignore them. And because of issues of national sovereignty, governments may prevent outside relief agencies from interceding on behalf of displaced persons within their borders. These displaced persons and those who are trapped in their home villages should be target populations for relief efforts.
You know, there is no place like home. You can be comfortable as anything, but once you are out of your home, it's miserable. The health situation is bad, there is no food, there is no security. So, what can you go to do? Our homes are all ransacked. We don't have homes anymore. We are all willing to go back home, but that is only after there is peace.
A critical concern in any relief effort is to recognize and encourage people's self-reliance. Those caught in a complex emergency have often lost a great deal: their homes, their assets, their jobs. Assistance agencies need to encourage and support individual and community efforts to cope with situations in ways that enable people to survive on their own resources. For example, the reestablishment of essential services, such as potable water, shelter, medical care, and a return of income-generating activities, such as the introduction of efficient food production techniques. All of these relief efforts support people's desire to retain their self-sufficiency. Yet relief efforts must also remember the importance of rehabilitation, the return to health, not only for land and water systems damaged by disaster and conflict, but for the people in this complex emergency who call this land home.
We have free vaccination for them, free base care, and we have free feeding for the malnourished ones.
How to help? How to prevent, prepare for, and provide assistance in complex emergency situations? The work of the United Nations is critical to this process. The first and most important step is to establish an early warning system, the ability to detect the worsening conditions that may lead to an emergency. For example, if investigation shows that prices are fluctuating in local food markets because of drought or crop failure, and local people aren't buying because of their own economic decline, that is a telling clue that this area may be increasingly vulnerable to a complex emergency. Other indicators, such as massive violations of human rights, religious intolerance, a reduction of current consumption levels, or an increase in the sale of possessions, can also signal vulnerability. If a complex emergency cannot be prevented, then it is critical that the delivery of aid during a crisis be well managed and coordinated within relief agencies and between relief agencies. Problems can occur because different relief agencies may have different responsibilities, mandates, and competence. If this is not coordinated, there may be wasteful duplication of efforts, or worse, agencies may actually be working at cross purposes.
This time, the 15-vehicle convoy has finally been able to get through to Idgahumuz.
The challenge in complex emergencies is for many agencies with different but potentially complementary roles to work together constructively, despite difficult conditions.
We must assist 95,000 people, and the stock we have now in Adigudum is only for 12,000 maximum. It means for 2 days distribution.
The successful reduction of suffering and loss depends in large measure on the coordination between agencies and the extent to which all the actors are proficient. The coordination of food supplies and logistics.
The food is actually reaching them now, but it's still a very difficult operation. You know, 500,000 people, and the food is still limited. We need more.
In the United Nations, managing complex emergencies is one of the responsibilities of the newly established Department of Humanitarian Affairs. Following the General Assembly Resolution 46-182 of December 1991, an emergency coordinator has been appointed as an Undersecretary General, designated to coordinate humanitarian assistance at the highest levels of the UN. In addition to the Department of Humanitarian Affairs, there are specialized UN agencies that have mandates that include preparedness, mitigation, and response to complex emergencies. These include the Food and Agriculture Organization, the United Nations Development Program, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the United Nations Children's Fund, the World Food Program, and the World Health Organization. In addition to the United Nations system, the International Committee of the Red Cross, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, and several international non-governmental organizations are very important players on the scene of international humanitarian assistance.
What we want is the food to be transported from Mekele to these distribution places by trucks every day and regularly.
The UN has the mechanisms to provide assistance to the victims of complex emergencies in two critical areas. First, by helping to negotiate ceasefires between warring parties. And second, the negotiation of corridors or zones or days of tranquility, which allows for the delivery of essential goods such as food and medicines. During any civil conflict, safety concerns are paramount for relief agencies. The UN can help in the negotiations between agencies and governments and procedures for relief personnel. Clearances for relief flights or vehicles to travel to areas of need under flags of truce, communication for aid groups, and standby evacuation support. This can be achieved through conflict resolution and humanitarian diplomacy.
The work is going to go on, and the work will intensify because we are working for the people. We are not working for ourselves, we are working for the humanity.
It is critical that all relief organizations working in complex emergencies must recognize the importance and promote the application of the principles of international humanitarian law. The special human needs that result from complex emergencies must be recognized by all parties involved, especially the need for basic, inalienable human rights. In recognition of the special demands that result from complex emergencies, Resolution 46-182 affirms that humanitarian assistance must be provided in accordance with the principles of humanity, neutrality, and impartiality. This resolution includes the creation of the Emergency Revolving Fund to facilitate a rapid and coordinated response to these disasters. The resolution also enables efforts to override issues of sovereignty, needs, or safety and security concerns exist, though attempting at all times to balance the concerns of all involved. Prevention is really the key to combating complex emergencies. It is important to decrease countries' vulnerability to complex emergencies, to promote balanced development, development that minimizes social inequities, and creates situations that support equal opportunities for all. This can be achieved by promoting respect for human rights, by strengthening the concept of civil order, and by encouraging national dialogue and conflict resolution. The suffering in complex emergencies is profound, and it is our obligation to prevent these emergencies.